New York has a way of making every athlete feel small. The lights are enormous. The crowds are relentless. The history is everywhere. And at the center of it all sits Arthur Ashe Stadium, waiting for another generation of players to discover what pressure at the US Open really feels like. This time, one of the most fascinating stories belongs to Alex. Just days after a painful defeat in Cincinnati, the 21-year-old is heading toward the final Grand Slam stage of the season with something far more valuable than a perfect record: experience. She knows what it feels like to win when the pressure is enormous. She knows what it feels like to lose when victory seems close. She knows what it feels like to have an entire nation watching. And now she is about to discover whether she can turn all of that into a deep run in New York. But there is another layer to this story. Alex is no longer entering a tournament as an unknown young player hoping to surprise somebody. She arrives after a season that has changed the way the tennis world sees her. She has won a WTA Tour singles title. She has beaten established stars. She has climbed into the upper reaches of the rankings. And her popularity has transformed her matches into events of their own. So when Alex arrives in New York, the biggest question is not whether she belongs. She already proved that. The question is how much higher she can go. And the answer may depend on the one part of her game that has repeatedly drawn attention: her serve. Before we get to New York, we have to go back to Cincinnati. Because that loss may have been one of the most important matches Alex played all summer. Alex entered Cincinnati as the number 17 seed, the highest seeding of her career. That number alone showed how quickly her status had changed. Not long ago, simply reaching the main draw of major tournaments represented progress. Now she was arriving as a seeded player, carrying expectations instead of merely chasing them. She won her second-round match against Elena Gabriela Ruse and moved into the third round. Then came Amanda Anisimova. Anisimova was ranked number 10 and had already established herself as a player capable of producing enormous power under pressure. She was exactly the kind of opponent who could test whether Alex's recent rise was temporary momentum or the beginning of something much bigger. The opening set suggested Alex was ready. She took it 6-4. Her movement was sharp. She found ways to redirect pace. She competed for every short ball and refused to allow Anisimova to settle comfortably into her preferred baseline rhythm. But tennis can turn in a handful of points. In the second set, Anisimova began taking control earlier in rallies. Instead of allowing Alex to build points gradually, she attacked with greater urgency and forced Alex to defend more often. The score became level. And suddenly a match Alex had controlled was level. The deciding set began with another twist. Alex moved ahead 2-0. For a moment, it looked as if she had regained control. But Anisimova did something champions and top-level contenders learn to do: she refused to panic. She kept taking the ball early. She pressed Alex's serve. She made Alex work for every opening. And instead of allowing the 2-0 deficit to grow, she turned the match completely around. 6 consecutive games later, the score was 6-2. The match was over. Alex's 9-match winning streak had ended. That hurts. Especially when you have already tasted what winning feels like. But the loss also contained an important lesson. Alex did not suddenly become a worse player. She encountered an opponent who found a way to remove some of her time and expose the areas where Alex still has room to improve. That distinction matters. Because the best players do not treat losses as evidence that the journey has failed. They treat them as information. And Alex had just received a lot of information. The first lesson was about closing matches. The second was about protecting her service games when an opponent raises the pressure. The third was about what happens when the player on the other side refuses to let momentum stay with you. And those lessons could become extremely valuable in New York. Because the US Open will not give Alex many comfortable moments. The pressure will be higher. The opponents will be stronger. The crowd will be louder. And every weakness will be examined. That is why the story of Alex's summer cannot begin with Cincinnati. It has to begin in Washington. Because Washington was the moment everything changed. At the DC Open, Alex went through a draw that looked more like a test of a top player than a young star searching for her first title. She defeated Olympic champion Zheng Qinwen. She defeated defending champion Leylah Fernandez. She defeated world number 10 Alina Svitolina. She defeated four-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka. Then she reached the final against Jessica Pegula. And that final became a battle of patience, resilience, and timing. Rain interrupted the contest. Instead of simply continuing with the rhythm she had built, Alex had to stop, wait, and eventually return to the court with the pressure still hanging over the match. That is difficult for any player. A rain delay can erase momentum. It can give an opponent time to reset. It can turn a flowing match into a completely different mental contest. But when play resumed, Alex found another level. She lost the opening set 6-4. Then she answered with a 6-4 second set. And in the decider, she did something that announced her arrival in a way no ranking number could. She won 6 games in a row. 6-0. The final score was 4-6, 6-4, 6-0. And with that, Alex became the first Filipina to win a WTA Tour singles title. That is not simply a trophy. That is a milestone that changes the history of a country's tennis story. The Philippines had waited for a player who could reach this level. Now it had won. The victory also pushed Alex to a new career-high ranking of number 20. Think about what that means. A player who once needed opportunities to enter major events was now being discussed as one of the leading names in the draw. Opponents were studying her. Fans were following her. Tournaments were watching her attendance numbers. And the expectations were changing almost overnight. That is what happens when a player crosses the invisible line between prospect and star. You stop being evaluated only on potential. You start being judged on results. And Alex was producing them. Her Washington run also revealed something important about her mentality. The biggest moments did not make her smaller. They appeared to make her more aggressive. Against Pegula, the final set was not cautious. It was decisive. That is the kind of finishing ability that matters at Grand Slam level. Because deep tournament runs are not built only on talent. They are built on the ability to take advantage of the moment when an opponent finally gives you an opening. Alex did that in Washington. Then came Wimbledon. And that tournament added another layer to the story. Alex defeated defending champion Iga Swiatek on center court. The score was 7-6, 1-6, 6-2. It was the kind of victory that changes how the sport talks about you. Beating a former world number 1 is impressive. Beating the defending champion on one of the biggest courts in tennis is something else entirely. The match showed that Alex could handle an opponent whose reputation alone creates pressure. She survived a dramatic first set. She endured a second set response. And when the deciding set arrived, she did not disappear. She found the courage to attack again. That is the quality top players need. Not perfection. Recovery. The ability to lose a set without losing the match. The ability to make an opponent believe the match is still theirs, then suddenly take control again. Alex eventually lost to Jasmine Paolini in the 4th round, but by then the damage to the old perception of her was already done. She was no longer simply a player with an exciting future. She had become a player capable of defeating the best in the world. And that brings us to the strange position she occupies now. Alex is still young enough to be developing. But she is already famous enough to be expected to win. That is one of the hardest transitions in professional sport. When you are an underdog, every victory feels like a bonus. When you become a favorite, victories become obligations. The same result that once created headlines can eventually be treated as normal. That is the price of becoming a star. And Alex is beginning to pay it. Her popularity has also become impossible to separate from her tennis. In Toronto and Cincinnati, Filipino supporters turned up in enormous numbers. The atmosphere around her matches has become part of the experience. Flags appear in the stands. Fans travel long distances. Her name is shouted after major points. And the energy can transform an ordinary match into something much larger. That matters because tennis is usually an individual sport. A player walks onto court alone. There are no teammates beside them. No bench can absorb the pressure. No quarterback can call another play. The player has only the next point. But Alex has discovered that she carries something with her. A community. For Filipino fans around the world, her success has become a source of pride. And that support can be powerful. But it can also create pressure. Every new tournament becomes another opportunity to prove that the previous success was real. Every loss becomes a question. Was the breakthrough a moment? Or is this the beginning of an era? That is what New York will test. And there is one part of Alex's game that could decide the answer. Her serve. Martina Navratilova has been one of the voices who has offered technical observations about Alex's game, particularly the need for a more dangerous serve. The point is not simply that Alex needs to hit harder. Power without placement is not enough. A bigger serve matters because of what it creates afterward. If the first serve lands with enough speed and spin, the returner has less time. If the return is weak, Alex gets the first opportunity to attack. If the opponent starts guessing about placement, the server gains another advantage. That is the chain reaction. Serve quality affects the next shot. The next shot affects court position. Court position affects the rally. And the rally often determines the point. This is why improving one technical area can transform an entire game. Alex already has the baseline weapons. She can move. She can redirect. She can defend. She can attack. But a more reliable serve would allow her to start more points on her own terms. That could be crucial on New York's hard courts. Hard courts reward players who can take control early. Long exchanges still happen, but the ability to shorten points becomes increasingly valuable as matches accumulate. At a Grand Slam, fatigue becomes part of the opponent. If you need 3 extra shots to win every service point, the cost eventually appears. If your serve produces easier holds, you conserve energy. That energy matters in the second week. It matters in a third set battle. It matters when the crowd is screaming and your legs feel heavy. So Alex's serve is not a minor technical detail. It may be one of the keys to how far she can go. And there is another tactical weapon she can exploit. Her left-handedness. Left-handed players naturally create different angles. A right-hand opponent is accustomed to seeing a certain geometry throughout the tour. Alex can disrupt that. Her serve can pull opponents into uncomfortable areas. Her forehand can create patterns that change the shape of the rally. But being left-handed only becomes an advantage if she uses it intelligently. Variation matters. Placement matters. Spin matters. The goal is to make the returner uncertain. If an opponent knows exactly where the serve is going, even a fast delivery can become manageable. If the opponent is guessing, even a slightly slower serve can become dangerous. That is where Alex's next level could be found. Not simply hitting harder. Thinking better. Building points before they begin. And that is what makes the US Open so intriguing. Because Alex has already shown she can win spectacular matches. Now she has to show she can build a tournament. A Grand Slam is not one opponent. It is a sequence of problems. Different styles. Different speeds. Different personalities. Different tactical demands. A power hitter requires one strategy. A defensive counterpuncher requires another. A big server changes the return equation. A left-hander changes the patterns again. And Alex has to solve each problem without losing herself in the process. That is where her Cincinnati experience could become valuable. Against Anisimova, she learned how quickly a match can move away from her. She had a 2-0 lead in the third set. It was not enough. At the US Open, a lead is never the same thing as a victory. The opponent is still alive. The crowd is still reacting. The match is still moving. The player who manages those moments best is usually the one who survives. Alex will need patience. She will need discipline. And she will need to trust the patterns that brought her here. There is another opportunity waiting for her in New York too. Mixed doubles. Alex is set to team with Canadian star Felix Auger-Aliassime. On paper, it is an intriguing combination. Felix brings explosive serving and baseline power. Alex brings left-handed angles, anticipation and quick reactions. Mixed doubles also demands a different kind of intelligence. Points develop faster. Players spend more time at the net. Returns have to be placed carefully. Communication becomes essential. One poor decision can immediately expose an open court. For Alex, that environment could be useful. It forces her to process information quickly. And the experience of playing in a different format can sharpen skills that later transfer into singles. The US Open mixed doubles event is also being staged in a concentrated format, putting enormous pressure on every match. There is very little time to recover from mistakes. That means Alex will get an early taste of New York pressure before the singles tournament reaches its most important stages. And then comes the singles draw. The biggest challenge. The biggest opportunity. The biggest stage. Arthur Ashe Stadium is not just another tennis court. It carries the weight of decades of history. The next answer waits under New York lights.